first off, congratulations to all of you.
Thank
It's
you.
look at this like bevy of talent right here. And for all of you, this would be the first Emmy win, which is also a big deal. Uh, and a number of you, of course, work with Mike White, who famously is a survivor stand. So I'm sure he's taught you how to be the last survivor standing. So maybe by the end of this, we'll have voted everyone off and we'll pick a winner. So congrats in advance. Um, Also love that both Sam and Jason are about to go to bed. So we'll keep them.
Just if anything
And
gets dull, I just have a quick nap. That's all.
if this gets really boring halfway through, then
Yeah.
Talking to
we're gonna
anyone
see
else.
Sam doze off, which I appreciate. But I mean, you all had such iconic just moments this season on your shows, and you play these characters who people can't stop talking about. So since this is a SAG-AFTRA panel, I thought it'd be interesting to start off by talking about prepping for these roles. And we'll start with Tramell and Zach, just because this was season 2, so you've had a chance to really live in these roles now. But there's still so much mystery attached to Severance and where things are going, and really what ultimately is going to happen to these characters. What's the show really about? So prepping, especially for season 2, and I'm sure you still have some mystery to, okay, what's the end game here? How does that play into how you prepare yourself for going into this once again, re-inhabiting these roles? Tramell, I mean, Milchick, we know more, we know his first name, but there's still a lot we don't know about this character. How do you prep for something like that?
I mean, this show has activated my trust issues. And like I I break out in hives sometimes working on this show because it's so hard to um be able to step into a project where you don't know how it's going to end or what this particular code means or how to move forward and how this affects the character. And so it really has been an exercise in me trusting, Ben and Dan and my fellow cast who are absolutely wonderful, incredible, and just trying to have fun and make sense of this journey.
Yeah, I imagine, especially a character like this where we've seen his vulnerable moments, but we've also seen him be pretty diabolical. So it's sort of playing both sides of that fence, and how do you lean one way or the other? And, going into a season, do you feel like, okay, this is the season that maybe we see a different side of Milch? How do you sort of, get into that frame of mind?
Well, you got to lean into the circumstances, right? Like the season 1, he was essentially Cobell's henchman, right? And in the second season, he gets promoted. So he's the boss. And he goes through this process of trying to, change the way Lumen does things by giving the refiners um, all of these kindness reforms, as Drummond puts it, in an attempt to get them to do what he wants them to do. And it blows up in his face every single time. But he just keeps coming back and keeps trying and keeps trying, which is part of the joy of it. You see this guy who is diabolical, but then they give him a left hook and then it's just like it's a wrap. Like he can't come back from it, but then he finds another way in until his back is up against the wall from his performance review. And he realizes that his whole identity, which is wrapped up into this company, it's so important for him to be able to serve and be that company man. So he's got to figure out what he needs to do, and he does it.
I'll have to ask you later how you do that Milchick smile, because it's half the time it's all about that grin as well. That there's so much going on with that grin. Zach, you had to prep to basically, especially this season, we saw so much more of both your innie and outie. So in some ways, you're prepping to play two different characters. How did you kind of get into that mindset this season? What was your prep process like?
Trammell talked about having to have a lot of trust on the show, and I think that's definitely part of it, of being trusting, but also kind of being ready to be nimble, because we might have talked about where my character was headed at the end of season 1, and then we show up to make season 2, and it's kind of a different thing than we had talked about. It definitely helps me that both my innie and my outie don't know what's going on, so it's okay that I don't know what's going on. They're kind of both in the dark a little bit as well, so I kind of lean into that a little bit. And then I really just leaned on the other actors I get to work with on our show. It's such a great group of people that we kind of like figure it out together as we're doing it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of mind games even with the characters around you. Like you don't know the character sitting next to you, is this really Helly or is it Helena? And playing off that too and that energy. It's kind of fascinating as an actor, I'm sure. And okay, do I need to sort of be suspicious of who these people are around me, or how am I playing this?
Yeah, that was a really fun thing to do, to watch Britt Lauer do that this season. And then to when I finally watched the season, kind of get to see all the layers to what she had going on. And as an actor in the scenes with her, I would sometimes forget kind of who she was. Like, is she playing this person or this person? So it really for me was a lot about just you know relying on the other actors who we're paired up with.
Let's
I have a
talk.
question. I have a question really quickly. So this
Yeah,
is all about kind of going back and forth, and
yeah, definitely.
such a big fan of these two fellas. And
Yeah.
do you guys get you get all the scripts in advance? Do you get like two or three in advance? Are you like how does that how does that work? Something that is so secretive and so kind of elusive. Do you have an idea where you're going and where you're going to end at the beginning of the season, or do they just dole them out over time?
Well, to be honest, our filming process has been very, very unique. In season one, we have the pandemic. So we had all the scripts from episode 1 to episode 9. And then season 2 was a bit different we were basically, would you say writing or filming as we wrote?
Yeah, we would get we at least for me, I talked to Ben and Dan at the beginning of the season and got the sort of general arc of what was going to happen with my character. And then we got a few scripts at a time, and then we were interrupted by the strike, so we kind of were down for like 6, 7 months in the middle of the season. And then we got the rest of the scripts when we came back. So it was a little different this season compared to last season. But I kind of knew like the general idea of where I was going at the beginning of filming the season.
Do you guys
I
find
have a question
yourselves? Oh,
Sorry,
yeah,
go
go
on.
ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm first of all, can I say I'm completely starstruck to be on this panel. Walton and Sam are amazing actors I've worked with, and I know them. But you two, I am just right in the middle of rewatching the series with my daughter. I've been watching you every single day, so it's odd for me to be watching you. I'm just a huge fan. But I wondered watching it whether it's so serious. It is. I mean, not like ours wasn't serious too, but it is. I wondered whether you crack up all the time because there's a lot of it's so grim and the dialogue is so heightened and what you're going through is so intense. I wondered whether you all obviously you take it seriously because the work's brilliant, but do you crack up at all at doing this stuff? How do you keep a straight face some of the time?
Yeah, I mean, I have fun. I mean, honestly, especially with Tramell. Tramell is the most likely to make me most likely to make me laugh while we're shooting, just because there was a scene this season where we're outside on this like outdoor retreat, and he's telling our characters in complete seriousness that this waterfall is the tallest waterfall on
That's the
planet
one.
Earth.
That's the very scene that made me ask the question.
Yeah, and we turn around and it's like 70 feet. It's not that big at all. And every time he would do that, I got a real kick out of that. But yeah, we definitely do. At least from my point of view, we do crack up. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I enjoy watching them have fun. Milchick is so like locked in and like it's like a suit of armor with this guy, man. So there's not a whole lot of room where he can have fun unless it's like, in a marching band or Defiant Jazz moment in that sense. But it
you do
really
sometimes
is-
it's so outrageous, so
Yeah.
ridiculous. Things you're being asked to do, which I swallow whole. But
Well, Jason, let's turn it back on you now because I mean you had some of the more dramatic moments of this season too. So how do you prep for that? knowing that your character is going through this huge breakdown. Every episode he's getting deeper into his own head because his world is collapsing around him. What do you do to prepare for something like that?
This is going to sound irresponsible or amateur, I guess. I mean, I read it all. Obviously, I knew what was going on, and I don't prepare because you can't prepare because moods hit you, emotions hit you. I know where I imagine roughly what he's going to feel like, but I don't want to have a plan. I mean, I have to be suicidal. I have to think that the best way out of this situation is to fall out of love, is to kill my wife and then to kill my son, to kill my daughter. And I just don't like the type of acting I occasionally see in young people. Nobody here does it, where someone's given a magnificent performance the night before in the mirror, and they've got a musical score in their script, and they know which bit their voice is going to crack on. I trust and hope that the muse comes. Mike's writing is brilliant. He doesn't get enough credit as a director. This one was weird for me because acting is about connection, human connection. You guys do it so brilliantly in Severance, and Sam Walton had such powerful connections with each other, and Walton with Amy Lou. But I was very alone as Timothy, and I didn't want to plan anything. I just hoped that I felt, it's a bleak place to be. He's in a very, very bleak, terrifying place. The fun / challenge / terror of it for me on this job was that it's all internal. There's virtually no words. And all I'm doing is running all the scenarios in my head and trying to think his thoughts. So I didn't want to plan what his thoughts were. I know who he is and what his life is. And I'd get to the set and I would I love my kids. I mean, in real life, I love Patrick, Sam, and Sarah Catherine. They're really special people. I spent a lot of time with them, and I would get there, and I don't know, maybe other people, everyone has a different approach, but I just try and become that guy. I find weird talking about acting generally. It's brilliant writing. It's a very creative atmosphere on the set, and I do nothing. I mean, I prepared the accent, and I know what the drugs do to you, but I just get there and try and switch myself off and let's be flooded by someone else. That's just pretentious and nonsense. I'm sorry. You can cut all that. I have no idea. I've literally no idea.
No, this is what people want to know. And Walton, it's kind of the same question because your character also goes through kind of a similar situation where he's here in this beautiful location, but at the same time there's something that's weighing him down. How do you prepare for that other than putting on your Walton Goggins goggles and the magic happens?
Doesn't that work for everybody? Everybody on this thing,
It works for me. I put the goggles on, and I'm a better actor immediately.
You know what? I actually don't think that I have anything in common with what Jason's character went through. I don't think there's any similarities at all. I think this is when I read it for the first time, I read all 8, right out of the gate, and that was kind of a necessity for me jumping on board with this. And I saw it as just a person who has been in an arrested state of development his entire life, and was incapable of processing this or taking inventory in his own life. And I think a lot of people experience something like this, and then all of a sudden something rather innocuous happens, like reading an article in a magazine. And then it makes you think about, how did you get here? What was it? Who's responsible? Like, what is this life that you've been leading? And that's what so connected me to this story. I don't believe in playing characters, a lot like what Jason said. I believe you turn yourself over to an imaginary set of circumstances, and that's kind of it. And it was going to be an isolating kind of experience, from the get-go. And we got there and we were off to the races. And then over the course of this experience, when your entire life is defined by an incident, that you think shaped your life, that is responsible for where you are in this world, all you want is someone to answer for that. There has to be consequences for that. And so, like everybody else, all these other actors that are here and the one that isn't, these are all people that are bone deep, and story means everything, and you live with it every single day. And over the course of these 7 months, it culminated. It was just going to this one moment, this confrontation with Scott Glenn, And luckily for me, I got to be with Sam for a bit of that crescendo,
Yeah.
and then it happened, and then on the other side of that was this great relief, which is reflected in a smile.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
Mike White wrote. I mean, it's like his story, and then all of a sudden, it's the metaphor for all of us. The parable is, well, I mean, if you found peace and it's skin deep, it means nothing, right? Because all it takes is a pebble in your pond to create a tsunami, and then the ending kind of happened the way it happened. It was painful.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was curious what it was like for you to, as an actor, leading up to that moment, having that catharsis, after he has that confrontation with Scott Glenn's character, and then shooting those cathartic moments, being on the beach, and then things turn around again. Those must have been very different kinds of days and just ways to shoot.
We filmed that beach scene where, I run up and Amy, Lou, and I kind of reconnect. We did it on day two at the very beginning of the
Wow.
schedule. I would suffice it to say, you want this answer from every single one of these incredible actors, and Rockwell is in his own category. But you look at the schedule, you read the story, there it is. These days are coming, right? And then you try to put them out of your mind, and then the day is there. And then you have to surrender without, like Jake said, without, shaping the course of the river. And it is what it is. And however it comes out is without judgment. And that's what it is.
Walter, you know what we had? We had a director who created an atmosphere where you felt like we could find some truth. You don't always get that. You know what I mean? We had a man who created the space in the right way. Those things to arrive. You think?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. He created space for all of us. And what's so different than your experience on Severance? I don't want to speak for all of us, but we're all together, but we're all separate, right? I mean, we hardly ever crossed paths. And that was certainly my experience. I mean, I don't want to talk to any of these people as Rick Hatchett. And so, when we were working, like, that's kind of what it was. It was hard on everybody. And then, when it was all said and done, I was grateful that I got the bullet, like I was like, wow, okay, this means something. I feel like my journey had a beginning, a middle, and thank God an end to it. And I don't have to think about it anymore. It was personal on a lot of levels. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
Well, that leads us, of course, to Sam, and that scene, that moment between the two of you that now has become kind of legendary in a way. I mean, Sam, talk a little bit about preparing, for playing this role and also sort of being one of the surprises of the season when you show up. But then, of course, I know
Yeah.
everyone asks you about that monologue and that moment with Walton
Yeah.
across you.
Yeah. I was sort of thrown into it because an actor dropped out, and I was in South Africa doing a movie that had quite a bit of talking, a lot of monologues actually. And then I'd done American Buffalo. So I was kind of monologued up. I was sort of, and I guess that was my prep, because I didn't really have a lot of prep for, I didn't really have a lot of prep for this White Lotus thing. It was like 4 weeks maybe. And Leslie Bibb, my partner who's in White Lotus, who's amazing, told me about this speech and that there was an actor going to do it. And then she came and she got me off book on it. She came to South Africa and helped me get off book. And then, I pitched some stuff to Mike White as far as the rest of the part, other than the monologue. And I talked to Walt, and I knew that Walt and I would have this, Cagney and Lacey, Butch and Sundance thing immediately.
Who's Cagney? Who's Lacey?
Because we have a history. We have a history because we rode horses in Santa Fe and on Cowboys and Aliens we met, and we're very good friends. So I knew I've never had that experience working with a close friend and playing close friends. So it was very interesting. But as far as So that was kind of like a shorthand. Like we could make each other laugh um, immediately. But like, I think, what you guys were saying about Mike too is that he's not afraid of, like, for instance, when I did the monologue the first time, I did it really fast. And he said, you can pause, you can take your time. And he's not afraid of a little air, he's not afraid of pauses and stuff. So, and Walt made me feel really safe. I was scared and I didn't know if I'd be off book. And thank God we shot some stuff before that so I could get my sea legs on the show. But yeah, it was a trip, man. It was a trip. I was trying to prep as much as I could, and then, as Jason says, be open in the moment. I think a lot of stuff also came from previous parts. Like I did a movie called Choke, and I played a sex addict. It was sort of what's the word? It was kind of assumed that we were ex-military. Maybe we talked about it, and having done some movies like that. And then there's some other elements like the Buddhist stuff I didn't really know about. I had to sort of watch a documentary and, that was about it though. That was kind of, and just memorizing.
I like to think of you two more as Rizzoli and Isles, but I think Cagney and Lacey works too. So Walt had the good question: who's Tyne Daly, who's Sharon Glass? But we'll take that offline and we'll figure that out. Well, we talk about these moments, these big moments on the show, and would you say that the ones that we would sort of assume were the most challenging are those big moments, or did you find that there were actually different moments than maybe the ones that we always bring up that were?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think it is like that, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know how you guys feel. Sometimes just the simplest scenes become monumental, and then
you make it for yourself. Like what we're saying, you say to yourself, I've got this scene coming up in 3 weeks. No one else is saying it. You're saying it yourself. So it becomes a thing. It may or may not be a thing objectively. For me, it was poisoning everybody, giving everyone drinks, and then changing my mind. And I built up this huge thing in my mind. It wasn't on the day. You're in the moment on the day. You just have to get rid of that stuff and stay loose, and just play the moment.
You have to be open to whatever's happening. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious on Severance, if you guys ever had, especially in the first season, this thing of like, was it like, even though you'd read the scripts maybe and you were ahead of it, did you have, like, I'm just assuming like a Chris Nolan movie like Memento or something, where I would have to like go like, hey, so what happens? So what happened in the last? Did you guys have any of that kind of like, okay, wait, where am I? What's that? You know what I mean? Even though you'd read it.
Yeah, especially on season one, because because we had all the scripts, we shot it more like we block shot it. So we were kind of shooting a lot more out of order.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So definitely we had to kind of be like, okay, so, or like, we also have to have conversations, at least those of us who play innies and outies, constantly about like, what knowledge would I even have? Like would I know what this concept is? But it was very helpful having Dan is always around and just like, again, leaning on the other actors where we kind of like just chat through that and make sure we're all, locked in on what is happening.
Yeah.
You have a lot of silences. You have a lot of non-word stuff, which is amazing. I mean, they're so brave how long they will hold scenes without speaking and how long you guys hold looks at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tramell, what were you going to say? What?
No, I was just going to say, like, one of the biggest mysteries of the show is like, what the hell are we doing? What is this? Where are we? What are these numbers? Why do I care about this chip? What is Cobell up to? There were so many questions that we just did not have answers to. And, filming during the pandemic it really was life or death, coming on set every day. And
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Amazing what we were able to accomplish in that first season of filming something that's just so different.
When you don't know the answer to something, like in a story like Severance, sometimes you ask, obviously, but are there moments where it's like, I don't know, I don't need to know, and they'll tell me if I'm even remotely in the ballpark? Or like, you know what I mean, right? I mean,
70,
Yeah.
75% of Milchick is that. It's
right.
like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this means, but they'll tell me if I'm off,
Yeah.
and we're all trying to figure it out together. And yes, I'm sure that there is a master plan at play, and there are people that do know the end goal. You
Are
know,
you?
am
Are
I?
you sure that they actually know what the numbers mean yet? Or do you think that they might come up with it in season 4 or season 5? Maybe it doesn't mean anything yet. Maybe it's like The Prisoner.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tramel's just like, what about the goats? Explain to me the goats.
Bring back the goats.
You know what's one of the hardest parts about like the White Lotus, and I would just gotta I wish that the other two groups of actors could weigh in on it. And Jason, I'm so curious what Jason thinks about this. Would be great, and Sam. But one of the toughest parts is, we've all been around a long time. We've all been a part of ensembles, big ensembles and smaller ensembles. And you get a chance to really see people's work, right? Because you're there, you're kind of with them. In this case, we were all together for hours and days, but we're separate, meaning that like all the breakfast, all that stuff is done at once, all the lunches, all the dinners, and there are a lot of kind of passing each other, but you're still in your own world. And what was so frustrating is I just want to watch like what Jason is doing or what Parker's doing or what Leslie or Michelle or Carrie is doing. And you can't, right? Because, I mean, Amy and I were just there together and you're just out of earshot. So it's really frustrating. That, Jason?
It was a strange job for us. Like, I think about you guys in Severance. You're a team. You really do rely. Those 4 people kind of love each other, work together, and then you've got the bosses and stuff interact with all the people. You're right. We particularly for you and me, we were really isolated. I mean, we weren't isolated socially, but the workplace, I don't connect with anybody. I just having my own internal monologue the whole time. And the good thing about that was I loved watching the show as a fan, because I didn't get to see your stuff with Amy Lou, and it was fabulous to watch the 3 girls and Christian, who made me laugh so much. And but it's weird having been away with people and feel like you shared an experience with them, but you didn't share the work with them at all. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious for all of you, what are those conversations like on either on set or even when you're having those breakfasts or you're meeting as a team away from shooting? How does that inform your acting and maybe as you're maybe realizing as you're kind of comparing notes and theories, does that change how you then kind of look at the show or your performance? Like, did that inform maybe what you were going to do the next day after you had an interesting conversation, over a crafty or something like that?
You mean all of us, or are you talking about?
Yeah, anyone who sort of wants to take that.
I mean, I like I said, I got very close to the 3 actors who played my children, and he loves his kids. He loves his kids so much he'll kill them, and then he doesn't want to kill them, and then one of them he thinks he's killed. So I don't know what acting is. Acting is tricking your imagination into thinking you are someone as much as you can. You still know where the marks are, and you've stopped for lunch. But so as much as you can be helped by the environment or the other actors, I found that easy. So getting close to people you're close to, like Sam and Walton being really good friends, helps, I guess. But then I don't know. I've played opposite people like we don't get on at all, and we look like we love each other. And people who I'm really close to doesn't want. I don't know that.
No,
I
that's
don't know that
true,
real
yeah.
life overlaps.
That's acting, right? That is
I
acting.
don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, Officer and Gentleman, right? That's a famous story. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Jason and I did a movie called Single Shot years ago. Beautiful, amazing cast, and
Yeah.
we were adversaries and that. We're sorry, Michael. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just curious again. How much another kind of classic question. How much of yourself do you bring to some of these characters, and is it easier when it is a character who maybe has been written a little bit with you in mind, or over time? And this is probably especially true with Severance, since you're in season 2. As they write to your strengths, do you find that suddenly it's infusing more of your own personality? Zach, I feel like maybe in some ways that's probably you the most. Do you feel like there's a lot of you in Dylan, or what have you found?
Yeah, I think there's definitely parts of me, and I think especially, they have definitely written to kind of like what they've seen I can do, and I think especially, over the course of season one, John and I got quite close, and so I think that informed a lot of kind of where our characters go in this season. So that obviously is great and exciting, and it does help that that kind of relationship already exists. So then when we're doing those scenes, there is something to that. But also there also is a lot of the character that is not me. But I think a few others have said you kind of just like lean into the circumstances and try and just like be the guy.
Yeah, how about the rest of you? I mean, you all, like you're well-known performers, actors, and so clearly, the writers, in the case of White Lotus, of course, Mike White knows your strengths. He knows sort of, perhaps what to bring out of you. Walton, did you find that you noticed any sort of elements of that in the script that sort of you kind of brought out the Walton Goggins?
Well,
Are you Rick, Walton? Are you?
say that again.
Are you Rick?
Am I? I'm sorry. Stop calling me Rick. Stop. No, Augustus. Call me Walton. No, I don't know. I mean, like I identified. I think a lot of people do, but I certainly identified with Rick Hatchett's journey, just based on some things that happened in my own life. I don't need to repeat that in here, but yeah, I certainly had a lot of empathy for him, because I think we all walk around with an extraordinary amount of pain. I think people in general, whether they admit it, whether you're able to kind of see it or not, I think it's always kind of there. And so, the opportunity to kind of tell this story and play this guy in this story was, the opportunity of a lifetime, really for me, not for anything beyond just the pleasure, the privilege, I suppose, to go on an existential crisis that was written by Mike White. The thing that I was most surprised about, and I wonder what Sam or Jason think about this. All of these people, all of these people are a part of Mike.
Mm.
You know what I mean? All of them are extenuation of Mike. I think except for, I can't speak for everyone else, but I don't think Rick was. I think Rick was someone, an outsider, and someone that he cares about all of these characters, Jason's character and Parker and Sam's character and Leslie and everybody's character. He cares so much about them because a lot of them, so much of them are part of him. And I don't think any of us realized that, when we got there, but we did all kind of talk about that. And, and Mike was, gracious enough to kind of share, a little bit of that. And that was really surprising. And, but, so exciting to be working with a person who has that many personalities.
He's also a fantastic actor. So when he came out to give a note, there's different ways Mike would give a note. One of the ways he'd give a note is he'd say cut, and he'd come out and he'd walk around in circles, and you'd look over and you'd think, oh, he's playing all the parts to himself. And he's actually really good. And he'd come over and he'd very gently suggest something, and you want to go, just do it. I saw you do it in the corner. It was great. The thing. Just tell me what the thing is. But if the question is about writing to people's strengths, I don't know that he did that with us. He might have done it with Parker. He knew Parker beforehand, but I wasn't even the first person offered my job. God bless the man who turned it down. I'm going to send him a gift pony. But no, I think he created the character, and he cast us right. That's what he did.
You bring up an interesting point, Jason, though, the fact that both of your shows are run by someone who's also an actor. So that must bring an interesting perspective too. And Zach and Tramell, I mean, obviously with Ben Stiller there as a performer, is it a little different to be directed by a performer? And what are those conversations like in working with someone who clearly knows the craft?
It helps to work with someone who does get the craft of acting. There's a vocabulary, there's a patience, there's a willingness, just as Mike is willing to allow for pauses and setting scenarios for people to play and to interact. Ben does the same thing. It's just in a different umbrella because we're in this corporate structure that is like soul sucking, and you're in this, this room that have low lights, and like ceiling is just, right underneath you, and it all adds and feeds into the storytelling.
Hey, can I ask you guys a question on Severance? Mike was very loose with his words are brilliant, his characters are brilliant, but you could also go off piste if you felt like it. Whatever, if the moment took you, you could go wherever you liked, and he may use it or not. And he threw suggestions out all the time. Severance seems very precise. Are you on script, syllable for syllable, or are you given license to ad lib and stuff? How does it work?
Well, I had to be syllable for syllable. I also didn't want to, fuss with Dan Erickson and his team, their writing, because it's just beautiful. What about
Yeah, for me, and this is something I love about working with Ben, is I came up kind of doing comedy and improv comedy, and Ben knows that and knows that world. And so when I first came onto the show, we talked a lot about how, for me, I find it very helpful to be able to ad lib, even if we don't end up using it. It just kind of helps me like find the character. So him and Dan were both very supportive of kind of allowing me to kind of try things, and sometimes we use it and sometimes we don't. But I found it, especially in season one, very helpful to kind of just like figure out who I was as we were, trying to figure out what the tone of the show was and all that stuff. So for me, there is a little bit of room, but it's also, it depends on the moment. It depends on the scene, but they are very happy to kind of like work with us on that stuff.
Well, Zach, also something that famously the four of you did to promote the new season was you did this big activation at Grand Central Station where you were basically in a cube for what, 3 or 4 hours, ad-libbing, like doing some your own improv that apparently was canon for the show. So there was it seems like they gave you a little leeway to play around there.
Yeah, Dan was very gung ho about like it's just go in there and it's like a day at the office. And then he did afterwards tell us that he considered it canon.
Yeah. So there you go. You've written it into the history of the show. Well, I'm also curious now for all of you because Jason, Walton, and Sam, you're coming into a show that was season 3, so it's well established. People know what the White Lotus is. They know what to expect. So how does that change your mindset in preparing again for a show that people are really passionate about? They really have their own theories. There are plenty of Reddit threads. There's a lot of conversation about this show. And do you think about that at all as you're filming? Is there a moment where you're like, oh, people are going to eat this up? This is the fan base is going to really dive into this, and does that play at all into either your preparation or your performance? How much are you thinking about just the microscope that's on a show like that?
Isaacs, you want to
Yeah,
Rockwell?
not at all. If you think about that stuff, you just shit yourself. No, no, of course not. It's a reasonable question, but I know you try not to think about the number of people that are watching because you're trying to make a moment truthful. I'm not. Actually, none of us could have predicted how enormous the show got all over the world because it just kind of blew up. But we weren't thinking about what people would be saying online and stuff. We weren't thinking if this moment's going to play well. Actually, honestly, what I was thinking is I don't want to be the guy to kill White Lotus with my crappy acting because so many episodes just drugged out of my head, not saying very much, and I was worried that I would be the dullest person that had ever been in White Lotus, and that I wouldn't be able to tell the story.
I'd agree with what Jason said. I think like right out of the gate, there was what we didn't really talk about it with each other, but I think for everybody, like going into working with anybody that you respect and admire, right? You don't want to mess that up, and I think all of us kind of felt some responsibility. We didn't want to be the person who just dropped the ball, right?
Yeah.
And until your very first day of
or
work,
in the season that killed White Lotus.
right, whatever. Yeah, all of those things. And then but that's just like everybody in the anticipation of going to work. I think that's any actor worth their weight in salt that cares about storytelling would feel that way. And then, your very first day at work, it's like, oh, okay, now we're just playing pretend. And that's all it is. And Sam, what was so Sam, I don't want to speak for you, but he came in, like he said, like with a lot kind of going
Flaming
on.
hot. Flaming
Yeah,
hot.
and getting an opportunity to we all know what it's like the day before. You got a 5-page monologue or whatever that is, and Sam just kind of came in and it's like, okay, here we go, buddy. What are we going to get this time? And it was just this flow, and that's really kind of what you're all looking for. But yeah, I think it's the White Lotus, but then it's the White Lotus, man. It's a story.
Yeah, well,
Nothing is successful until it's successful. Like I've never been on anything when you're doing it thinking this is going to be great. I'm proper actors, the ones I love and respect and admire, the ones who think, how can I be not shit? That's, how can I not be the guy that ruins this? That's what creativity is, I think.
And I, at least for me, I think we had some of that going from season 1 to season 2 of our show because, season 1, we were making in such a bubble. We didn't know how it would be received. We didn't really even know how to describe it to people. And then we had such a long layoff between seasons that there was this like kind of tremendous amount of pressure where, before you show up, you're thinking about that a little bit. But like you said, once you get there and kind of get back into it, then you're just doing the same thing you always are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is the tone, isn't it? Like it's the tone.
Yeah.
Top down. And like when
There
Sam
is-
got there,
There's
Sam.
this other thing about acting, which is that however confident you are, however much you think the scene is good, however much one might think, I've never thought this, but this scene's going well, I've done this well. Someone says cut, and then the director walks towards you going, and they could just say anything. They could go, I'm sorry, I'm just not buying any of this. Always, whatever level you reach, they can just come up and burst your bubble. They don't. The good ones don't. Mike White comes out every time, starts with a compliment, comes out, awesome, it's great, neat, fantastic. And then gently will say the thing he was really thinking. But
Good approach.
yeah, but you're always vulnerable to someone going, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Tramell, I was just at Comic-Con a couple weeks ago, and one of my favorite characters, cosplay, I saw someone dressed as Milchick, and it was a really, really well done
Wow.
Milchick.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious,
Wow.
like in
That's
your
cool.
head now, when you're going back to work, knowing that this character has become iconic, does that change at all, or does that impact your prep or your performance? That now that people know who this character is.
No, I mean, it still goes back to what Jason just said. You just try not to be shit every day on set. You know what I mean? And like I was nodding with Jason when you said the director would come in and just kind of like, because I know exactly what that feels like, especially with season 1, because I hadn't had the opportunity of working with Ben or anyone before, so I didn't know how people operated. But anytime we cut and Ben would come across the corner and come into the office and he would come right to me, I'm like, oh God, here it is. I'm about to get fired. This is it. It's a wrap. I'm done. And even in season 2, it still feels that way. I don't know why, but it's that feeling of like you just didn't quite get it right, or it could be better, or try to find it this way. But I try to avoid letting all of the fandom to change the work or the heart of it. It's really getting to the humanity of this guy and telling the truth of this story and where he is in the moment.
Well, they're still writing season 3, so maybe Sam, Walton, Jason, I mean, I know you guys are.
Number 4.
I would kill to be in Severance.
We're available.
I feel like they would all be fantastic, and who knows what.
Waiting for the phone
everywhere.
call. Ben hasn't called us.
So fingers crossed. Well, congrats, guys, and thank you so much for joining us, and all the best to all of you. And now, Sam, Jason, go get some sleep.
Yeah. A good idea.
Congratulations, everybody, man.
Yeah, we'll see you.
Congratulations.